Ah, are you the one they called the SpongeBob?
I think so.
Well, we are here to teach you all about the Vikings.
Huzzah!
SpongeBob might be one of the most successful shows ever created by cartoon giant Nickelodeon, but did you know that it has some animation errors? Well, here we are to show you some of them. Number 1, the scent of money. Well, even Gary took part in some of Mr. Krabs' schemes to gain ever more money. In this episode from the 7th season of the show, Mr. Krabs discovers that Gary has a special talent for finding money in the streets and in hidden places. And as you know, if Mr. Krabs finds a new way of getting more money, he for sure will exploit it. He goes as far as telling SpongeBob to paint the Krusty Krab with a toothbrush so he can have Gary doing his bidding for a longer time. We recommend you watch this episode if you like cool stories, but now let's see if we found any animation errors.
What are you doing out here?
Oh, you know, unwinding, enjoying the free parking.
SpongeBob was having a quiet and delightful day going for a walk with his beloved pet snail Gary until Mr. Krabs decided to show up. But what's the strange thing happening in this scene? Well, when SpongeBob suddenly encounters Mr. Krabs in the parking lot right before he discovers Gary's power to find money, they start talking for a brief moment. It's in this same moment where we find the first animation error because SpongeBob's eyelashes disappear for a brief frame. We're no strangers to these kinds of errors, but they are always worth noticing.
You look fine to me. Quit being such a baby and start making me some money. Excuse me, excuse me!
For sure, Mr. Krabs is a real evildoer when it comes to gaining more and more money. In this scene, we see that not only is he hiding in the bathroom, but Mr. Krabs has dressed as an old woman just to hide from SpongeBob and steal more of Gary's time. But we see that he doesn't take care of Gary properly, and this makes him a victim of an animation error. In this scene where Mr. Krabs is hiding Gary right under his old woman's dress, we found a very small and fast error only found by the most expert eyes. If you look at Gary's shell when Mr. Krabs is hiding him, there's a brief moment in which his shell loses all its details and becomes plain colored. You might need to re-watch this scene before finding this mistake because it's lightning fast. Number 2, Tentacle Vision. SpongeBob might be the main protagonist of this show, but have you ever imagined how a show would be if Squidward was its main character? Well, get ready to discover it in this episode. After finding out that some TV shows were getting canceled and finding out that Bikini Bottom's TV was giving shows to anyone, Squidward tries to get out of SpongeBob's shadow by creating Squidward Chat, a TV show in which Bikini Bottom's most famous squid is the protagonist. This creates a very funny episode with some interesting twists inside Squidward's TV show. That's why we don't want to spoil you any details and directly recommend that you watch and enjoy it by yourselves. Now let's move on to some errors.
All of the most intelligent programming starts before 5 a.m.
What's the first thing you need to watch TV? A great TV controller. At the very beginning of the episode, we see that Squidward is spending his night watching his favorite TV shows. To switch from one another, he uses a very special controller that will be the protagonist of the first animation error that we've found here. In this long scene inside Squidward's living room, we see that he uses the controller many times, but when we see the remote controller at first, it has a big and flashy red button. This is the last time that we see that button because after this scene, it disappears from the controller and it's nowhere to be seen. What a curious way to start the episode.
as I was saying, today on Squidward Chat, we'll be discussing...
So I ran to tell Squidward that he was on TV, and he told me that I was on TV.
Well, great TV shows always have an awesome supporting cast for their protagonists, right? In this scene, SpongeBob invades Squidward's set and appears on live TV, only to make Squidward angry and tell him to leave his house. Right after SpongeBob leaves, we see Squidward back on TV, and in that moment, the wrinkles on his forehead completely disappear. Poor Squidward, he needs to control his anger. Number 3, MOONCATION. Who doesn't want a trip to the moon? Sandy and SpongeBob have a really good friendship, and in this episode they celebrate that by making an incredible trip to the moon. During their time on the moon, they learn to moonboard, or skateboarding on the moon. They drive some space rockets, and they even go to Mars on their next trip. We highly recommend this episode because it's a very fun experience to watch. But now, let's forget about spoilers and move into some animation errors.
Nothing like extreme sports and zero gravity. All right, your turn.
Oh, gee, I don't know, Sandy. It looks kind of scary.
Well, it seems like the moon's gravity has affected SpongeBob in some ways. In this scene, we can see that SpongeBob and Sandy are having a brief but friendly chat when something strange happens to SpongeBob's eyes. This is a super fast and hard animation error to find, but if you looked at SpongeBob while he was talking, there's a brief moment in which he blinks his eyes for a second, but his eyelashes don't move and remain on top of his face. For sure, this has to be the moon's fault.
Oh, we are gonna make it, aren't we, Sandy?
If the fuel holds out, there's no reason to panic.
Sandy's rocket is a very special vehicle to travel inside. Our protagonists might be on a crashing course during this scene, but there's a small animation error ready to be discovered. If you look closely at the fuel gauge, there's an error on the gauge screen. When the fuel is about to be finished, the color shown in the screen is blue instead of red. What a funny episode. Number 4, for here or to go. Who would have thought that Mr. Krabs wouldn't give a free patty to anyone? Even worse if that burger is for Plankton. In this episode, Plankton wins a free Krabby Patty in the annual Bun Seed Counting Contest. This, of course, creates a new episode in the rivalry of Bikini Bottom's biggest businessmen in the fast food sector with a really funny and curious ending. We'll leave you all the pleasure of discovering the exciting moments that this episode includes, but we're not going to forget about the animation errors. So let's watch them.
Needs to clean the grill first.
I cleaned it this morning.
Doesn't your spatula need a line in or something?
Nope, she's perfectly aligned.
SpongeBob experts, we call you. This scene has one of the hardest animation errors that we've ever found, so get ready to find it. Here, when Mr. Krabs is talking to SpongeBob, we found something strange happening to Mr. Krabs' eyes, because if you look closely, there's a frame in which Krabs' pupils disappear from his eyes. Such a great way to start with this episode.
Mr. Krabs, Plankton was right.
Yes! I now command you to give Mr. Plankton his prize.
Call an ambulance! SpongeBob is losing some body parts. Here we see that SpongeBob splits in half while talking to Plankton. But if that wasn't bad enough for him, he's the victim of an animation error. If you look carefully at both of his body halves, SpongeBob's arms disappear at the same moment that he splits in two. These are some hard errors to find. Number 5, sweet and sour squid. This show has some of the weirdest friendships ever created, and this episode is the best example of it. In this fantastic adventure, Plankton elaborates a fantastic plan to steal the Krabby Patty's secret formula, and that is to gain Squidward's confidence and become his best friend. This weird friendship left us with so many funny moments that we are sure you'll love to discover, so just enjoy the show.
It came up and kicked you in the face!
Hey, that happened to Patrick once too. Hey,
None of you know a great musician when you hear him!
Now let's jump into some animation errors. The Krusty Krab is missing some crucial parts in this scene. SpongeBob experts might have noticed what is going on in this scene, but in case you didn't, when Squidward is running away from the Krusty Krab, his own workplace disappears. How's Mr. Krabs going to make any money if there's no cash register?
In fact, thanks to you, I'm going to quit my job at the Krusty Krab and become a full-time musician.
We've already seen way too many accidents in this video. Sandy might be a great scientist, but she is no stranger to risking her life in extreme adventures. But in this scene, something strange happens to her and her helicopter. When Sandy's falling down after her helicopter is destroyed, a small part of the helicopter's rotor blade is cut off at the end of the screen. What a cool episode. There you have it, SpongeBob fans. Here are some animation errors that you can find in your favorite show. If you like the video, please subscribe to our channel so we can provide you with even funnier SpongeBob content. See you later. Goodbye.